All right, we're live. Welcome back. This is the final day of the debates. We've had 4 days of back-to-back debates from all kinds of positions, all kinds of candidates. We've finally nearly reached the end. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope people watching are really looking forward to it. We start off our final day with the candidates for heads of clubs and societies. So we've got Dominic and Alia here with us. I'll just quickly run through the itinerary before we jump straight into the opening statement. First of all, we've got an intro, which we're in right now. Then we go into an opening statement by the candidates. And then for after that, we'll have a Q&A from our office bearers who are with us today, and they'll be joining us in just a moment. And then we'll have questions from the students. So if you're watching right now, do put your questions in the chat, and we'll pass the questions along to Dominic and Alia to answer. And we'll round it off with a closing statement. So yeah, let's get going. This is really exciting. Dominic and Alia, take it away with your opening statement.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alia.
And I'm Dominic.
And we're currently running to be your heads of clubs and society for MUSA 2021. Our vision for 2021 is to promote an enjoyable social experience for all Monastians, encouraging them to actively participate and grab opportunities that can enhance and improve their skills as well as develop strong relationships with one another. As representatives of our party at Circumnanson, our mission is to approach next year with a positive attitude and to accomplish everything we mentioned in our manifesto, to foster good relationships with one another, to create a suitable environment where all Monastians can enjoy varieties of activities through extracurricular activities, and to be helpful, patient, and committed to our role as part of MUSA 2021, in line with our party's vision and our own values. Based on ACM's stance and our own personal values, we stand firm on the importance of communication, fairness, fostering of relationships, and amity. We are aware of the challenges posed for next year, and we are making preparations and contingency plans to combat that. With the combined forces of our committee and subcommittee, we will be making thorough and methodologically devised plans for next year after being elected. However, with full consideration to our current situation, we ask that members of clubs and societies understand the difficult position that we are all in together regarding next year's financial challenges. And before anyone waves torches and pitchforks, please remember that we are all in this together.
For our manifesto, we talked about a few major points we intend to emphasize on in the coming year. Let's start with the first one. Our first point is effective communication. It's not something new, but it's something that is very important and is often overlooked. To properly function, we need to be able to communicate civilly with one another to prevent misunderstandings. If we are elected, then we aim to clearly communicate with all of our stakeholders on any and all issues, so everyone can operate effectively without wasting precious time due to miscommunication. In our second point, we mentioned fairness. As heads of C&S, it's important that we remain unbiased regardless of our own personal views and opinions. Therefore, we intend to treat everyone who comes to us equally and fairly. As for any club-related issues like problems with EMS requests and funding issues, we promise to be unbiased and also do our best to help.
For our third point, we want to capitalize on strong relationships. When we say we want to create a friendly, sociable environment for all Monastians so they are free to pursue their interests, we want to include everyone in our initiative. We also plan on organizing some form of casual sports sessions every so often for everyone to de-stress and get to know each other individually and as well as a team. Additionally, we also list friendly and approachable as one of our goals. The both of us are very friendly people, and we welcome anyone to come and have a chat with us. Like you, we're students as well. We want to bring out the best in this experience and enjoy the moment. We want to bring positivity and happiness into our job, as well as for our committee and subcommittee. We want you to be aware that if there are any concerns or issues regarding clubs, societies, activities, and/or events, don't shy away from us. Our priority as CNS is to hear your voice and work together to find a common ground and solve the issues at hand.
Last but not least, let's talk about Monash Cup. Monash Cup is one of the most important events of the year, and Monash Cup 2021 will definitely be a challenge to organize. Additional things we want to implement for Monash Cup 2021 will be the continuation and expansion of esports categories. We recognize the growing community of esports players in Monash, and we hope to attract a larger audience for Monash Cup 2021 and potentially appeal to more sponsors that could financially assist our division next year. We believe that implementing both physical and digital sports will allow Monash Cup to be a more well-rounded event, as well as allow houses to compete on a more equal playing field. Emphasizing on this matter again, we ask clubs and societies to understand that the difficult position we are in due to next year's challenges. We may all have to compromise on certain issues, but we assure you that we will try to do our best to meet everyone's expectations. We are also looking into alternate ways to earn revenue while also being as cost efficient as possible, so students will be able to experience the full Monashian experience without having to compromise on many issues. We also ask everyone to be more considerate of one another, treat everyone equally with kindness and respect to promote a positive, safe environment for extracurricular activities. Now we'll pass the time back to Aros for a Q&A session.
All right. Thanks for that opening statement, Dominic and Alia. We'll move on now to our next part of this debate, where we bring in our current office bearers to pass their questions along to Dom and Alia. So it's my honor to bring in Kwa and Darren. Thanks for coming, guys, this afternoon. So yeah, take it away with your questions to Dominic and Alia.
All right, no problem. Yeho, I think I'll go first. I'll be asking questions pertaining to their committee, clubs, and other matters, whereas Yeho will be asking regarding Monash Cup, if that's all right with you guys. Okay, so my first question for Dom and Alia is that reading your manifesto, you've mentioned your point fairness in terms of your treatment towards clubs. It's very easy to say, but how do you plan to make it practical? How do you plan to implement that sort of fairness in treatment towards all clubs?
Okay, I think I'll take that question. From that regard, I'm looking at two perspectives. One of them is how we treat them and how we give, let's say, how we settle the issues. First off, of course, we need to treat everyone politely and nicely. You don't want to come off as rude and arrogant. That's the first point. Second part is that when it comes to issues like EMS or whatever, it's important to note that everyone also should have the same opportunities. There's 60 plus clubs in Monash, so clubs and societies in Monash. So it's important that all of them have a chance. That's why we also have a fixed subsidy on clubs and societies for them to draw money on. Because unless it's a really big event, we don't want them to be drawing more money than other clubs, because everyone also should have the same amount of money to work with. Does that answer your question?
All right, thank you. That's fine. That's fair. Okay, all right. So my next question, I've got a few questions here, but I'll go one by one. Yeah. So my next question for you is that, all right. Unlike MUIS, the rest of the committee is not. They don't go through elections. Means they're not elected. Instead, you guys will be the one appointing them through your own private process or interview. So how do you guarantee to the student population that when appointing your committee, that you do not have any bias, favoritism, or any cronyism happening?
Okay, so for the subject of committees, right? A few ways that we plan to make sure that it's unbiased is that we want to go through a stringent interview process, like a variety of questions that we can correctly judge their background, their vision, and see whether their views are aligned with ours, so that they are not overly biased towards a certain degree. And as well as that, we also plan to make sure that the positions are open to everyone. So anyone can join regardless of their race or whatever, as long as they are a hard worker. We will accept them as long as they meet the criteria that we want.
And by everyone, you mean how do you plan to let everyone know that C&S is forming their committee for 2021?
So for this matter that we've discussed a bit, and we think that instead of personally controlling everything and appointing our own friends, we think it's also important to publicize the fact that we are also we are hiring committee members. So maybe in the future that if we are elected, we will advertise on MUSA official page and asking them to send in their resumes, and then we will arrange a proper interview time and date.
Okay, all right, fine. So my next question. Okay, there are instances where in a normal campus here, there are instances where you know how on Monash we have different facilities like the dance studios, the basketball courts, the futsal courts, right? And all of these are Monash's property. But there are times where we have outsiders coming in, means students who are not Monash or outsiders who are coming in to use these facilities. And unfortunately, they don't have permission, or sometimes they end up, vandalizing the property. So how do you plan to react to these kind of situations, or what kind of policies do you plan to enact while liaising with FMD? Because clubs have to use these facilities as well, and it's not fair to them when outsiders are vandalizing it.
All right, so I'll be answering this one. To make sure that it's fair for everyone to be able to use these facilities, we will ensure that there's stringent policies that Monash students will have to abide to and follow in order to prevent and avoid these vandalisms and casualties of our facilities.
Can I add on also to the point that because everyone should have the chance to use this facility. So if let's say we allow one group that brings in outsiders that vandalizes the court, then it's perfectly unfair to everyone else because we would have to deal with the aftermath of the issue. So that means that we would have to make sure that everyone follows the guidelines and keep the place clean, so to speak, so everyone can use the facilities after that.
Do you feel like there might be an existing system that you can capitalize on already to keep track the move of like the entry or like the exits of these visitors? Or even in that case, just now you mentioned something about guidelines, am I right? And what kind of guidelines do you propose and where do you think it should be placed? Because when you think about it, there are no visible guidelines on campus.
So as I said, there is a system. On the Monash, there's a Monash booking system online where Monash students are able to book in advance for when they want to use the facilities. And because of the situation right now with the pandemic, we will also use that and implement our own guidelines to further like avoid the vandalisms and all other.
Basically, what we plan to do is that we plan to liaise with Student Life as well, because when you book the facilities, you have to go onto the web page, right? So we plan to put out reminders there and liaise with Student Life to see if it's possible. And other than that, I'm not sure if this is already being implemented, but I personally have not been on campus much. But we plan to put up the guidelines and posters at the sports venues and like reminders, like constant reminders when you can see them that it's you need to follow the guidelines to be able to use the place. Because if they are caught, then we will obviously put in penalties to prevent this kind of issue happening again.
Okay, all right. A little bit of a follow-up question. This is something related to yesterday's debate, which is the welfare candidates mentioned something about they are going to things related to like the sports center, the gym, and the basketball rims. They are going to be keeping a lookout for that. All right, I'm not too sure if they are aware that that's something that FMD is responsible for. But in the past year or the past 2 years, C&S has been getting like how do you say feedback from clubs saying things like, oh, please change the basketball rims and all of that. So this so far has been C&S's so to say responsibility to bring the issue up to FMD. If you're following me so far, So in relation to your welfare candidate colleagues, assuming that both of you guys, you and the welfare candidates, get elected, how do you plan to reconcile this issue? Because we don't want too much miscom going around with FMD or like redundant messages going to FMD.
Do you want to say that instead? Okay. So for this issue, right, seeing that it's already C&S responsibility for the past 2 years or so, right, to worry about these kinds of things, I feel that it should be C&S should continue to worry about this. So it will be like our responsibility to make sure that all of this will be done to bring it up to FMD basically. And if needed, we can still bring in welfare like as an additional voice to make sure that it's an urgent concern to get basically to raise these issues up to FMD and to get it done eventually.
Okay. All right. Right. Fair. Okay. My next question for you. Something that MUSA has to worry about every year would be our budget. And then for your year, it's no different. So let's just say I propose a scenario to you that you guys will be having a budget cut. I don't know how much, but let's just say you guys have a budget cut and of course your department will be affected, which in turn will affect how the clubs can spend their money, how much money the clubs will get. And that's the case, if the budget cut is severe to the point where you foresee a significant impact on clubs' budget, what will your policies be? And what advice will you give to the clubs?
Firstly, like we said in our manifesto, we will be transparent in the issue and will communicate with the heads of clubs and societies to make sure that everyone is on the same page and has full understanding of the issue. And furthermore, we will communicate, we will thoroughly plan for the budgets and how it will be allocated within the clubs. Tom?
I feel like seeing as that it's a hypothetical situation, and in that situation, we would definitely need to find sponsors to financially assist our department, and that's also part of what we're planning to do. Seeing as it's an urgent issue, we might have to start our planning earlier in the year, or even this year actually, to find sponsors before next year even begins, so that we can ensure there's a steady flow of money flowing to C&S.
Okay.
Is that answer your question?
I would like to follow up on that actually. Okay, considering a budget cut means a reduction in the budget and clubs will get less money. So when I meant policies, of course you can tell them to get sponsors. Of course, you would still provide money for them, but less, like fewer amounts. So if it goes to the point where you have to reduce the club's budget, like the total amount of money the clubs will get, how do you plan to redistribute the funds if you plan to, or how much percentage cut do you plan to do a cut?
This is something we will communicate and discuss with our treasurers and committee members.
But we also have to ensure that everyone gets a fair cut, because we can't cut someone's budget more than others or less than others. So everything has to be fair. We might also have to see what to do with that pool of funds, with the emergency pool of funds that is for clubs and everything. Yeah, how's that?
Okay, all right, fine. That's all from me. I think I'll pass my time to Yik Hao.
Right, so hi, I'm Yihao, Head of C&S. So, okay, so the first question I'll ask is okay, so everyone knows that Monash Cup is one of the biggest event in Monash, and it happens every year during semester 2. So for Dom and Alia, so as you guys are not wrong, like what you stated on your manifesto, you guys are under MUSA subcommittees and SESS subcommittees, right? Yeah. Okay. So without like prior experience on how C&S division was run and how Monash Cup was planned and executed, how confident are you guys in preparing for the Monash Cup for upcoming years?
Firstly, we will work with Peter as someone who can guide us throughout the year. I mean, for the Monash Cup, and also we have past experience that we believe has honed our leadership skills. For example.
Yeah. So I have experience with organizing competitions, specifically district level competitions, back in high school. I also have logistics skills, but we also will have to refer to our predecessors, meaning you and Darren, as well as current sports officer Peter, for advice on how to proceed with most of the planning and logistics.
I have past experience from being in the Openicus House team, and I've seen the behind the scenes of how they organize and plan the trainings and schedules, as well as experiences from high school in organizing big events such as prom and a musical event, musical fest.
All right. Okay. So I think it's good enough. And I'll move on to my second question. All right. So touch wood, if I mean like really touch wood, that next year the situation never like didn't go anywhere better and no physical activities were allowed. What are your like what's the second like the plan B of it? Like will you guys do the same thing as us or maybe like you guys plan for something new?
Guys, I do have to jump in here and say we're slowly running out of time. We've got 5 minutes left, so if you guys can answer just a bit quicker, that would be great, guys. So yeah.
Okay, sorry. Basically, what we plan to do, if such a thing happens, basically what we are trying to do is that, for those clubs and societies that can, we would like them to have their own online sessions instead, because like they can't physically meet up now. As for those that have physical activities like sports clubs, they can book the venue in Monash, according to and follow the SOP and everything, so they can have their own club meetings. And most of the other stuff is typically continuation of what you guys have done for this current period.
And also an expansion of adding more e-games or so that we can invite more players and have a larger audience as well.
And then
Okay,
from the okay, sorry, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, our plan for expansion and continuation of esports in Monash Cup was also to plan to appeal to companies like the gaming companies, like the ones who publish games. So if let's say we bring in their game to esports, maybe it's possible to leverage on those companies to be like sponsor us for Monash Cup.
So here's my last question. All right. So when executing Monash Cup, like physical ones, all right, or maybe like the online ones, what issue do you foresee, and what contingency plans do you have, and or maybe like actions will take?
We see a couple of issues. Firstly, conflicting schedules would be one of them. We understand that students' priorities are their studies, and some players will, if there were online games as well, some players might be participating in more than one game. So therefore, we will ensure that the schedule will not overlap with another, but still be within the time frame of the Monash Cup.
And then we also feel like there will be financial challenges next year. So that one I've answered in the last answer about the sponsors issue, and from how we're going to look for sponsors starting from this year, not just next year. And additionally, there should be also logistics issues. So in which we plan to bring on the full committee and our subcommittee to help in preparation for Monash Cup. In his policies, KL also mentions that the president candidate mentions that we have the option of bringing in a volunteer program on a project case-by-case basis. So from there, we can also apply, we can recruit extra manpower if needed. Does that answer your question?
Yep. All right. I think that's all for me.
All right, thanks, guys. We'll move on to the next part where we get questions from the audience. So if you're watching right now, do drop your questions in the live chat and we'll pass them along to Dominic and Alia. We've got two questions right now. First one is from Garen Leong. If there is misconduct made by the club member, any club, as the head of C&S, how will you guys deal with the situation when it is so severe?
As we said in our manifesto, we will communicate and have full transparency with the heads of club or club members and have a discussion, sit down and thoroughly
Investigate the issue.
To find a common ground and solution to the situation.
It's important for us as CNS heads because we are representatives of the clubs and societies in Monash, right? So it's important for us to be able to find an issue to resolve the issue, find a solution to resolve the issue. Because it's our responsibility also to facilitate the talk so that the situation doesn't get violent, so we can diffuse the situation easily as well.
In addition to that, since it's a misconduct, we will have a warning for that person, right?
All right. Moving on to the next question from Peter Lawrence. You guys mentioned that if there is a budget cut, you will find sponsors for extra funds. Assuming companies are willing to sponsor CNS, what do you think you can give the companies in return?
So we will appeal to the companies, and I mean, we can give what we can give in return is the consumer base and customers who are interested in their products and services.
Basically, we can advertise their products around with permission from the management. Of course, we can potentially advertise the products as well as feature them as official sponsors in Monash Cup, this kind of thing. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for the answer. So we haven't got any more questions right now from the chat. So if you are watching, do drop your questions. We'll pass them along to Dominic and Alia. In the meantime, Ikhao and Darren, do you guys have any more questions for Dominic and Alia?
Nope.
I do.
All right,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
All right. So just a few more questions, actually. So I've witnessed like some of the other candidates' manifestos, such as the SOB candidate who is interested in collaborating with CNS on in terms of events or for the students. What do you guys feel like? What is your opinion towards these collaborations? And are you like open to collaborating with certain departments for new events and all of that?
Okay, so for collaboration, right, I've also noticed that the collaboration with CNS is a major theme in a lot of debates. So for our, as CNS heads, our standpoint and our view is that we are open to collaborate as long as that we have enough budget to continue with our major functions, being the clubs and societies and Monash Cup as well. So if we want to collaborate, we would first need to check our budget, see if there is enough funds to allocate towards any of these events that they want to collaborate with. So because of that, we need to prioritize the ones that are more important.
And of course, like as we said in our speech, we prioritize students, all Monashians, regardless of whether they're in MUSA or in different clubs.
Okay. Just a follow-up question, yeah. All right. Apart from Monash Cup, which is a given, in a normal campus year, what other events are you going to bring for us? You know, since this year is a bit of a different year, are there any events that you're going to be continuing, or are there any new initiatives that you're going to be delivering?
We're currently still in discussions with new initiatives, but most of it will be continued from the year before this.
As
So,
well as
yeah.
as well as in addition to more games, esports in the sense.
Yeah, so we might plan to have like additional small scale esports competitions to also garner attraction for Monash Cup. So like in a way hype it up.
Okay, but when I asked about, sorry, another follow-up question. When I asked about a continuation, like, would you like to tell me what kind of events, like what are the events and what for? Like a continuation from the previous year you mentioned. What kind of events are you talking about?
From this Monash Cup, right?
It's not just Monash Cup, of course, yeah.
Well, because I entered Monash before Dom, and Dom came in during the pandemic. There were weekly events such as food and merchandise booths around the campus, hosted by School of Business and other schools, and we would like to continue those as well as other ideas by the societies and clubs heads.
Actually, I was thinking just now, I was wondering what kind of continuation I was referring to, things like CNS Week, for example. But yeah, good to hear that you have other ideas in mind also. It's also very common back then where you have clubs having bazaars where they'll set up booths across the common areas with like food and like games, but mostly food. And those were really popular. So I think that's something you might want to keep a lookout for. You know, clubs will probably do it again, and that's something that you should probably support. Just saying. Okay. All right. I think I have one more last question coming from me. I'm not sure if this was something like a question that you all answered before, but another question is, let's just say clubs have internal power struggles. Okay, they accuse so and so committee of not doing a job properly, but still holding on to a position. Do you believe in intervening in their conflicts, like solving it for them, being a mediator or something like that? Or do you rather have them solve it internally at their own accord and then only come to you guys as a last resort?
Okay, so this one, right? If it's an internal power struggle within the clubs and societies, I feel that if it's a minor issue, then the clubs and societies should solve it themselves. But if it begins to reach the point where it's beginning to affect the operation of the clubs and societies, meaning the exco is unable to function, then they should definitely come to us for remediation. We as the CNS heads will facilitate discussions and help them reach a proper conclusion, while also diffusing the situation and preventing the entire situation blowing up and affecting other clubs as well.
All right.
Okay, I think that's it from me. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Darren. We'll go back to the questions from the audience now because we've just gotten one from Peter Lawrence. This is a follow-up to the sponsorship question that was asked just now. Usually companies have different budget reports for every year and are reluctant to sponsor something for a different year. How do you think you can secure the sponsors? And there's a bit of a follow-up to this because you mentioned that you're going to contact companies even before your term started, if I understood you correctly.
Okay. Yes, yes, you understood this correctly. So the reason behind why we wanted to contact companies before our term even starts because in Malaysia, the financial term is from January to December. So usually companies prepare their budget estimation end of the year. It's easier to acquire sponsors if you can get them to agree to sponsor you before the budget estimation is completed, so that they can slot you in for this budget request, basically. And from the COVID-19 pandemic, we can see which companies are doing better and which aren't doing so well. So we can also leverage on their public image as well. So the ones that are doing better, maybe they have some extra cash to spend. The ones that are not doing so well, maybe we can leverage on our advertising, so we can promote them in like events like Monash Cup, CNS Week. We can put up our official sponsors, who to garner attention for their company lah.
All right. So right now we haven't got any more questions from the audience. So if you are watching, do drop your questions in the live chat, and we will pass them along to Dominic and Alia. Right now, I'll just go through what are the other debates we have today. We've got lots lined up. So do tune in. We've got activities chairperson later, editors, treasurers, general secretary, and then of course the big ones, the last final two, vice president and president, where the positions are contested. So we're going to be having more than one candidate. So do tune in for that. That's at 7 o'clock for vice presidents and 8:15 for the president position. So it's going to be very exciting, obviously. So do tune in. We've also got our first debate highlights from day one on the manga page. So do go and check that out. If you missed out day one of our debates, you can go and watch that to catch up, basically. Day two's highlights will be going up soon as well. So you can go and check that out. So yeah. Right now, I still haven't got any more questions from the audience. So I'll just remind you guys, if you are watching, you can drop your questions in the chat, and Dominic and Alia will answer them. Darren, Yikhao, do you have any more questions for Dominic and Alia as of now?
No, for me for
Anything from you, Darren?
Actually, okay, you know what? I have two more.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, don't worry, guys. This question is actually because we just want to understand you better as candidates. So the first question is pertaining to Monash Cup. It's been 1 year since we had a Monash Cup. This year is something different, but we are hoping that we can have a normal Monash Cup. So when your year comes, is there a specific vision that you guys like to implement for your Monash Cup? Is there like a special meaning you like to, or a special twist you like to add to it?
So, like we mentioned earlier in our speech, we want to continue with the esports as well as the physical sports that we had last year, and combine them to create a more special event with the team. What team?
Basically, we want to like revitalize Monash Cup, seeing as how there was nothing this year. I mean, not to say there was nothing, but there wasn't a proper Monash Cup physically, and because there was esports this year, we want to bring in both physical and digital sports to Monash Cup 2021. So we want to revitalize the event and also bring it back to the students' attention, basically.
Okay, all right. My last question, for real, my last question. Okay, so there may be this perception that clubs perceive CNS to be a level higher than them, or like this. There's this. How do I say this? This gap between clubs and CNS committees in terms of familiarity or approachability. And you mentioned that you want to be friendly and approachable as well. So how do you plan to implement that? How do you want to close the gap or be more approachable?
So our idea was to have occasional event where with the club members and our committee to further bond the relationship and get to know each other as well, and to show that we are not higher or we're not in a different position than them. We're here to facilitate their wishes and plans for any activities.
So to add on to that, we also plan to have like casual sports sessions once in a while, so that all of us can de-stress, meaning us, the committee, students from clubs and societies, we can get to know them better, improve current relationships, and then for those that are disagreeable with our stance, then it's possible to slowly get into touch with them and build relationships from the bottom up. And another thing we also mentioned in our manifesto, if I'm not wrong, we also mentioned how we would potentially send in our committees and subcommittee to club sessions every once in a while, as long as the clubs are willing, so that we can better know our stakeholders. And this is why also we will not stop our committee members from joining clubs as well, because that's also a very relevant thing. Because they also, as students, they deserve a right to exercise their extracurricular, join extracurricular activities.
Okay, all right. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. So it looks like we're not getting any more questions from the audience. So we'll move on to Dominic and Alia's closing statement. So yeah, take it away.
Okay. So firstly, we'd like to thank everyone here for showing up today to attend our debate session, and Darren and Yihao for asking questions, as well as all the students who have. And for everyone else, if you didn't ask anything, for showing your support. We're not afraid of any of the challenges or problems that will come in 2021, and we always promise to do our best. Additionally, if we get elected as CNS for next year, we hope to get along with everyone, not just clubs and societies, EXCO, but also student representatives and all our stakeholders. So we look forward to working with everyone. Thank you, and especially a special thanks to our ROs for spending their time for all of this. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day, and see you next time, I guess.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for turning up. Thanks to Darren and Yikhao for coming in and asking questions. Thanks to all who watched and asked questions as well. We'll be ending the broadcast here. So we'll see you guys next time in an hour or so for our debate with the activities chairperson at 2 p.m. So see you guys.
All right.
Bye.